What's up?
Just a quick
What's up, everybody?
How we doing?
All right, just a quick heads up. Facebook, being the special thing that it is, has deleted our live as I hit go live. So I don't know if Facebook's going to go live or not, but it's on YouTube. So Facebook is such a pain in the junk.
Facebook. So you all hear this. Facebook red flags us every time we go live.
Every time. It just put it up live now. Who knows if it's going to be live for how long on Facebook? But
it's always something.
Yeah.
It says that we evade copyrights, which is bullcrap. Every song you hear, everything we do is paid for. So
yeah,
I don't know where that comes in.
All right. So what's today?
Well, tonight, I know Eric and Jeff wanted to discuss Meat Hunter versus Trophy Hunter. So, of course, we have Eric Barnes joining us from Arrow and Angler. And, of course, you guys know Mike from BSO. He showed up here today, which I always enjoy having our BSO guys on. And I think Jeff Pike is possibly going to join us. I'm not sure. But I say we just get this baby started. Before we get started, I do want to say I did not see the sponsorship screen, so I'm sure that had to do with us kicking on and off. So
yeah, sorry, we
did just pick. Yep, it's okay. I figured that's what it had to do with. So I just want to throw out there that we did just pick up also a new sponsor, Susquehanna Custom Lures, and we had a phenomenal time with their product. Let me tell you that. I have some good video footage with their product. I'm super excited to get that out there.
Their stuff is very
as
nice.
Of that, we lost Chris.
Jeff says he's logging on now.
All right, cool. Tell him what you do on Thursdays. Speaking of sponsors.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. So Thursdays, every Thursday at 6, we go live and we give something away. And sometimes it's something we purchase. Sometimes it's a sponsor. Actually, this Thursday, we're going to give away some Interlock Broadheads. Interlock Broadheads was nice enough to take care of us. And after loving their product so dearly, so we want to do the same in return and share it with our viewers. So who knows what else we'll give away? We make decisions as we go. It's kind of crazy. We end up broke a lot of times.
But it's fun.
But Thursday, we will be definitely going to give some of them away.
Hey, speaking of, I'm going to give you a
little bit of
here. So I got a little bit of something to announce officially here. And I wanted to make sure I could check it and make sure that everything was good, right? But anybody here like Spotify?
Yep.
Love Spotify.
I do.
You can now get BSO Podcast on Spotify. Boom. There it is.
Good deal.
I just set that up today.
Where else can we find them, Chris?
You can find it on Apple Music. You can find it on Overcast. Soon to be on quite a few more stations. I'm working on getting them all set up, but so far those 5 or 6 definitely we have on here. Apple Music, Spotify, soon to be Amazon, all over. But yeah, I just wanted to show you. We're getting there.
Let me add something to that, Chris.
I know it says
you
my
and I
name.
in discussion of all. Go ahead.
I know it says my name, but it's just what it was when I set it up. So I mean, it's
it doesn't matter whose name it's in. You see the big man name, the head name. That's what matters. The team. But I want to add something to that. So we also are looking. If you're looking to hold a podcast or do your own podcast, we have slots available. So I want to throw that out there. We are offering slots. We will basically, you're going to just pay for your slot. So we already pay for it. You will pay for your own slot. and that will help take care of these other sources and things we want to get out there. So you doing that helps get us grow with our resources, but it also helps get you your own podcast on those resources. So if at any point you want to start your own podcast, hunting, fishing, outdoors, camping, I don't care what it is, as long as you're trying to get a child into the outdoors, let us know.
And I have
Chris
it.
has a scheduler he can send you.
Yeah, I have it set up so you can pick. And if you need a time other than what I have here, you just got to let me know. The only thing is we can't do it on the every other Monday when we're on here at 9 o'clock because that's where we're at. But other than that, yeah, we can set you up for any day of the week, anytime.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
Also, every other Monday, it looks like Hunter from Northern Mountain Game Calls will be doing a podcast on Big Sexy Outdoors.
Okay.
So that's another thing we need to bring up while we're live on these new trends. So I think that's really cool. I think that'll benefit all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I say we move forward with the show. So I think we covered a lot already, Chris, man. We did good.
That's what we do. But yeah, I figured I just wanted to make that announcement. I was pretty psyched about it that we're on there, and we'll put up our shows as we get them on that podcast thing. All right.
I appreciate it, Chris. You always do a phenomenal job, man. We love you. And thank you for being part of the team. So tonight we are meat hunter versus trophy hunter. So that's the topic for tonight. So first of all, let's go with which one we are. Let's start there. So Eric, which one in that category would you consider yourself?
Now, not to the extent of Jeff, but I would definitely put myself more in the trophy hunter category. The last few years, I've passed up 5 to 7 bucks a season, hunting a couple mature bucks. I was unsuccessful, unfortunately, but I'm to the point now where if it's not 110s or 120s, I'm not even picking up my bow. Just my personal preference there, but that's why I would call myself trophy hunter on that.
So Jeff, how about yourself? I know where you stand. Tell the viewers where you stand.
I would call myself a more selective hunter. I wouldn't call myself a trophy hunter because that's a derogatory term made famous by anti-hunters back in the 80s and 70s. But yeah, so I've been passing on bucks under 3.5 years of age since I was 18 years old. I'm 55 now. Been passing on bucks under 4.5 since I was about 23. So about 32 years I've been passing on bucks under 4.5.
And how about yourself, Mike?
If I'm hunting for meat, I'll use my doe tags, but I want to shoot a mature buck, just like everybody else, but you gotta let the small ones go to let them grow up. But
so
yeah, I passed up.
I got to tell you.
Go ahead.
Nope, go ahead, Mike. I thought you were done. You paused. I apologize.
I passed up some buck that a lot of people would shoot, but you gotta let them grow up to reach, 3.5, 4.5 years old and up. So go ahead, Ben.
So I would classify myself as a meat hunter. Don't hate me. I absolutely pass up on buck. I passed on a 5-pointer last year. I'm not looking for, I'm not looking to shoot the first buck that walks by. However, I would much rather shoot a buck with my bow than ever shoot him with a rifle.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
in my case, I'm about the meat. But I like the term Jeff used, selective. I think that really falls great. Because I would consider myself more selective than I would trophy. But I would say that if someone classified me in the two, I would pick meat. At the end of the day, it would always come down to feeding my family and us eating it before it would come down to, if I had to pick the 16-inch spread or the 20-inch spread, I'd take the 16. I'm not picky. Now, if I knew the 20 was every day, would I hold off? Yes, I would. So what do you think, Eric, I'll start with you. What do you think made you decide that you're a trophy hunter? At what point of your career did that change and you become a trophy hunter?
I will say, I think, not to steal his thunder, but Jeff is probably right. Selective hunter is probably the best term. But I've been bow hunting since I was 17 with a compound. I hunted crossbow when I was 15, 16, then switched over to the compound. I've been there ever since. I had to struggle through getting close to deer the first couple years I did it. I didn't shoot my first archery buck until 2015, and then I went on another couple year spell and didn't shoot another one until 2019, and then I went on a pretty good 4-year run where the last 2 years of that run were 7.5-year-old bucks on public land here in Pennsylvania. And after shooting those 2 bucks, those 80 to 90 inches just didn't get me excited anymore. Last year on opening day, I had 3 bucks between 70 and probably 95 inches come by my stand, and I enjoyed seeing them. Don't get me wrong, but like my heart didn't thump or anything. I was just like, oh, this is nice to see him, but I didn't cross my mind to shoot him. So I just that progression over time, kind of like Mike said, I do shoot does for the freezer. I definitely, and you as well. I definitely like venison. So that's kind of how I always get a doe or 2 a year to keep meat in the freezer. But when it comes to buck hunting, I kind of have my standards that I kind of hold out for. So,
Mike, how about yourself?
Yeah, I agree with him. I've been archery hunting since 1982, and now I'm restricted to a crossbow with my back and shoulders and just aging, getting older. But once you shoot that that bigger deer, you want to just I don't know. It was back in 2019 or something. I shot that 152-inch 8-point, and you don't see deer that big that often in Pennsylvania like that. So
No,
and
you
they're
don't.
out there. They're out there. They're there. We were hunting one that was bigger than the one I shot, which we never even had a picture of the one I shot on camera at all. And all of a sudden, showed up. There he was with a doe. That November, I think it was 6th. That time, I mean, they're out there. You just got to put your time in and do the homework, do your work, but they're there. You got to let them 2 and 3 year olds go. You want to shoot, them bigger ones, but I agree with what you said, Ben. I'd much sooner go with a bow or in archery season than I'd rather not go with a gun if it was up to me. But sometimes you have to.
I use the inline. Well, Mike, I use the inline if I have to put a doe down sometimes, just if I'm, for that meat scenario. So again, I wouldn't consider myself a meat hunter, but I would definitely consider myself selective in the sense of if I'm hungry, I'm eating it. It really depends. If you want me to be honest, it depends. I mean, I've hiked 3 miles back in the woods, and I was like, I ain't shooting that little buck and dragging that little buck out of here. And then I've gone where I sat off a field edge 200 yards in, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to eat him today.
But let me ask you, okay? Here's a hypothetical, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's say you had a younger buck, and it just happened to have a monstrous rack on it. Like, even if it was atypical, doesn't matter, right? But then right near it was a giant-bodied doe. Which would you go for? You had tags for both. Everything was legal, blah, blah, blah. Which would you go for? I know what I would go for, but
I'm curious your answer.
I'm shooting a doe.
I need to hear the age of the buck and the rough score of the buck before I can answer that question.
Again, imagine it's one of your trophies, one that you would go after.
So basically, the only caveat is it's not mature.
Yeah,
exactly. It's a smaller one, but for some reason it had a great year and grew a giant rack.
He's laying on the ground.
It'd look
That's
great
what
on
I'm
the
doing.
wall. Really?
He's laying on the ground. I'm just telling you. I'm going to shoot a buck over a doe if I have the opportunity. He's laying on the ground. This isn't a conversation piece for me.
For me, if he's over 130, I'm not going to be able to let him walk. But if he's only about 110s or so, and I know he's young, I'd probably shoot the doe.
See,
either way for me, no matter what, I'm shooting the doe because I go for meat over antlers. I can't eat them.
See, the reason I became a selective hunter or a trophy hunter,
Sorry.
as you called it, wasn't because of big antlers. It was because here in Pennsylvania, you were allowed one deer. And when I started bow hunting at 16, I was spending a lot of time. I was scouting all year. I was shooting my bow all year long. 2 to 3 different 3D shoots a weekend, you know. And then by the second or third day of the bow season, I was done and started my countdown for next year already. So you couldn't, if you shot a doe with your bow, you had to use your buck tag at that point in time. And which is one of the stupidest rules I've ever heard, you know, Pennsylvania's ever had. But back then you were allowed one deer, and that was it. So I started passing on bucks just because so I could extend my bow season, you know, or my deer season, and then learned that it wasn't as easy, you know, when you're 16 and you think, oh yeah, I'll just hold out for like a 3.5-year-old. Well, it's a whole different animal than a 1.5-year-old. So it was a lot of learning, you know. You know what I mean? It was a lot more of a challenge, and that challenge is what kept me going, you know, increasing my, you know, what I would consider my standards are. But I'd shoot a doe over a young buck in a second.
So I'm going to ask a question. We keep saying mature buck, right? What is it you guys consider a mature buck?
It's typically at Penn State and most other universities, they and other biologists, they consider a mature buck to be 4.5 years of age. At 4.5 years of age, he's not completely grown, just like humans aren't. But he's reached about 90%, 93% of his genetic potential when it comes to antlers. So whatever he's going to be, he's at 8.5, he's reached 92 or 93% of that growth by the time he's 4.5. So, and skeletal frame wise, he's mostly like, you know, like humans. A lot of people say 18 is an adult male. Well, there's a lot of people that grow after 18 years old. So, you know, they'll grow an inch or two. Same with whitetails. So I consider it a mature buck, and I don't think there's really anything wrong with saying a guy saying considers a mature buck 5.5. That's just their own preference. But I would say in the scientific community, it's 4.5.
Okay. How about you? Eric, do you lie in the same category, or do you see it differently?
Oh, I agree with Jeff 100%. And I learned this from Jeff. The biggest jump for a buck is going from 3.5 to 4.5. And there's some years where, you know, a buck going from 4.5 to 5.5. Some years he'll put on maybe 10, 15 inches. Other years he only puts on 5 inches. And after 5.5, yeah. And after 5.5, a lot of times they'll plateau, and then by 7, they're starting to go downhill.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me adding one more thing, the big difference I've seen before, as far as being difficult to kill, a 4.5-year-old buck is a lot harder to kill than a 3.5-year-old. It's a different animal between three. Like I might see the 3.5-year-old buck like 5 times during the course of the season. Next year, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna kill him pretty easily. Well, I'll hunt all year just to try to see him once during daylight once he's 4.5. So there's, you know, it's a big jump as far as you know, as a whitetail, as a buck. You know, they become more wary and they're harder to kill. So, but anyway,
yeah, they
Mike,
have to make a mistake for you to get, you know, in on a mature deer. They're not dumb. I mean, they know what's going on. They pattern you walking in and out, and there's one here around where I live that I've been hunting for almost 7 years, and I only got him on trail. I seen him on a hook one time, and it's pretty big. But
And
where
when they do make, go ahead.
Yep,
when they do make a mistake, it's like once a year. They might screw up once, and if you don't capitalize on that one time, if you screw up or they're just out of bow range or the wind's wrong, that's it. That was your chance for the whole year on that particular buck.
Mike, just curious, what state are you hunting in?
What's that?
What state do you hunt in?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, there we go. Got a bunch of PA hunters.
I live in northern Dauphin County.
Hey,
you're
Mike, what's
close to
that
Jeff,
property
then.
where you saw that one? I'm not
What's
going to write
that?
that down at all. I said, what's that property where you see that one? I'm not going to write that down at all.
It's
I'll
some
just need the
state game land,
GPS.
believe it or not.
Yeah. I don't need to know exact location, Mike. Just GPS
Just
coordinates.
GPS. Yeah.
Yep.
Tell me where your trail cam's at. That's all.
We don't need the tree.
Exactly.
So I
Sorry.
guess my question in this is going to be now next, and I kind of know how I do, but so how do each one of you guys determine this buck's age while sitting in a tree stand?
Years of experience and practice. I've been managing properties now for 20 some years, and trail cam pictures and everything, and judging them in person, and sending teeth in. Every buck we kill, we send the front teeth into a lab to get aged to see if we were right or wrong. Like, because some bucks will make their bigger jump between 2.5 and 3.5. Like Eric said, the majority, nothing in nature is perfect. The majority will make that biggest jump in antler size between 3 and 4. Some will make it between 2 and 3. Okay. And even on public land, usually bucks I hunt, I usually have a history of them for at least a year before I kill them. So I know about that buck, and they either become a shooter the next year, or it takes me a year or two to kill them. So I get a history of that buck. So I know that buck's at least, sometimes they turn out to be a year older than what I think they are, but they're never turn out to be a year younger. So like sometimes I think, well, he's 4.5, where he turned out to be 5.5. So
Right, but I understand what you're saying, but what are you looking at when you're going into these things? You're saying you're watching them and you're learning. What are you looking at? What are you looking for?
I'm looking at their body, their belly. Okay, the number one thing is a great tool. Now, you have to be it's area specific. So like if I look at a deer in another area, I might not be as accurate. But basically, if you look at the stomach, a big part's the stomach and the brisket. Okay, their stomach, right? When we were younger, we had the 6-pack and the V-shaped waist, the 28-inch waist, and the broad shoulders. Right, that's 2.5. Well, 3.5 is like the dad bod. Okay, straight line across their stomach from the front leg to the back leg. But in the 2.5, you'll see that right before the back legs, you'll see that V go up, like an angle. 4.5, you're going to start the dad bod start, and you're starting to see that little sag. Okay. Also in the brisket, it gets a lot deeper. Their legs at 2.5 look like giraffe legs when they're walking, like they look like baby giraffes. 3.5, their legs look a little shorter. 4.5, they look like more like a bull. So I could send you like diagrams of different bucks and show you that way. It's probably the best way. Visual aids is probably the best way to show you.
I like the answer. It was an answer I would have gave. I just was curious how use each.
No, I know. It's just better.
Curious how use each determine that. Now I'm sure everybody has their own way of doing it. I'm sure somebody has something different. Do one of you two guys have something different?
Honestly, I mean, to an extent what Jeff does, but I also bounce it off Jeff and other more experienced hunters than me, just to get an idea. And kind of like he said, me being primarily a public land hunter, a lot of the deer I'm hunting, I have a couple years experience with. I had my number one target buck this past season, 60 yards. And I know he was either 5.5 or 6.5 years old, because I've had like 3 or 4 years of history with him. But before season, I gather a hit list of shooters, and I can tell by their antlers. Like, I don't have to analyze their bodies if it's a buck I know about. And be like, okay, he's a mature buck, he's a shooter. Now, if it's a new buck that comes in, you have to kind of make a quick decision. Like if it's on the rut or something. But outside of that.
But it's going to happen. People are going to make mistakes. They hold out for what they think's a mature buck, and if you shoot a 3.5 by accident, it's not that hunter's fault. It's not like, as long as that hunter's happy with that buck, that's all it matters, and I mean, we try and we do our best, and it happens with some of my friends every once in a while. They'll end up shooting a 3.5 by mistake. But like I said, and it's not that big a deal if it does happen. It's like a button buck, you try to shoot a doe, and sometimes you're going to shoot a button buck, and there's no shame in it. you looked at its head, you thought it was a doe, and you shot it. And a lot of hunters get down when they shoot a button buck. It's hunting. It's going to happen, So, it's just that thing. The one thing you can't do is look at the antlers. If you try to judge deer's age by its antlers, you're not going to be very accurate. You're just guessing.
Yeah, you can see the sway in their back or their chest, that big Roman
That's
nose.
the other thing. Yep, the sway in the back. I'm sorry, I forgot that one. That was a good one.
A story here. Jeff knows about this. The last buck I shot back in 2022 was a 7.5-year-old buck, but only scored 114 inches. And when I post the picture, some people are like, "Oh, why'd you shoot that? That's only 2.5, 3.5-year-old buck." I'm like, I can tell you right now, that's a mature buck because I drug it a mile out of the woods. But
well, I knew just by looking at it.
Right. But where I hunt in the big woods, I'm in north central PA, like Cumming County. A lot of the bucks in my area never even see 130 inches.
Now, with that said, when I'm judging a buck, if it's as long as I know he's 4.5, he's a shooter. I don't care if a buck's 5.5, 6.5, 7.5. That's great if they are, but I can't sit there and look at a mature buck and say, "Oh, that buck's 7.5." It gets to the point where it's impossible. All I care about is he's 4.5 or not. Just like it's pretty easy to tell a 1.5, 2.5, and 3.5-year-old deer, and a 4.5. After that, it gets pretty difficult.
Hey, so hold on here. So I was going to ask this. I swear to God I was, but I was going to go through a few things. But Corey Brosman asked, and this is phenomenal. This is a question I was going to ask you. Mine would have been a little different, but I love it. So here's a question for you. You have a 150 3-year-old and a 120-inch 6-year-old that you have history with. Which one goes down?
I shoot the 120. I've done it numerous times over the last 20 years where I shot a small. Everybody's like, "Well, you had a larger buck," but I shot a buck that was smaller but older. And the reason being is that 150 is probably going to be there next year, and he's probably going to be, if he's 150 at 3.5, he's one of the very few bucks that have a chance to beat Boone and Crockett. Because so I'm shooting a mature buck that, bucks can't go to the veterinarian. So if they're 6.5, they're probably not going to be there every year. Their chances of not making it to the next season gets, just like a dog can live 15 years, but a coyote's not living 15 years because it can't go to the vet. So you get a buck that's 6.5, 7.5, you take him because the one you pass up is going to be there hopefully he's going to be there next year.
Can anybody read Corey's comment?
Yes, I just read it.
Yep,
I can't.
If they're standing together, you're shooting the 150, I promise.
I apologize, but I 125,000% agree with him.
What do you say?
You're going to shoot the 150.
Me? No, I passed. Like I said, I just killed my 34th mature buck this year. So for him to say that, he don't know me. He don't know who I am.
So
right, Eric?
He's right. But for my answer for that question, if it's a buck I have history with, I'm taking that all day because I put time. That means I put time, blood, sweat, and tears, into that specific buck. Now I'll be honest. If it's a random run encounter, I will take the 150 in that case. But if it's a buck I know about and know it's mature that I've been trying to kill for a while, I want to close that chapter.
Now, can I just add this? If it's a buck I've never seen in my life before, and here comes a buck out chasing a doe or something, and you see a 150, if it's a buck on my property that I know, I'm not shooting him. If it's a buck on public or I've never seen, I never knew that buck existed prior to laying my eyes on that particular moment, I'm probably going to be fooled and think he's older. But if he's on my property and I know, was a 3.5 for sure, if somebody on my property killed that buck, they'd never hunt my property again.
So we had a comment there on the Facebook thing. It said, as far as meat versus trophy, he goes, meat, you want trophy? You got a hot wife. They're better to snuggle with.
Yeah, they cost a lot more though.
No, that there is a true statement. There is a true statement.
It took me a long time to learn that, but they cost a lot. Trust me.
A whole lot more. Corey has me laughing. I'm sorry. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm hearing you. I do the same thing, but at the end of the day, If it comes down to if there's a 150 class standing with a 120 class, I don't give a flying crap what his age is. I'm shooting. I'm just putting it out there. I have no shame in saying
there's
who I
nothing
am.
wrong. No, but there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing. It's up to the hunter. It's an individual sport.
That I do agree with.
Even if you shot a 6-point, right? That's up to there's no shame in whatever. There's no when these debates between meat hunter, trophy hunter, there is no wrong answer. It's just how an individual hunter enjoys it. So I wouldn't be, there's no shame in shooting a 150. If that was my biggest buck I've ever killed and I never seen a 150 before, I'd probably kill it.
Not in Pennsylvania, because there's a lot of people that won't see a buck that big ever.
Yeah,
so listen,
you're right.
True.
Listen, I don't know if this is going to happen, but I just send our
too.
link. I just send our link to TV show host Corey Brosman. So we're going to see if he comes on. He just said I want on this show, so we're going to see if Corey pops on this show. Chris, if he pops on, let him on.
He's a good dude.
He's a good dude, and he's just like us. He's pretty blunt, pretty honest.
I have to tell him he owes me a Stingray trip.
I just sent him the StreamYard link. We're going to give him a minute and see if he comes on. Did we just lose Jeff Pike?
I think so. He'll be back, I'm sure.
Jeff's a great hunter, but he's not the most tech savvy guy.
But no, I got to say, no matter what it looks like, I don't care about the antlers at all. I'm looking at the giant body. What am I getting the most meat out of per tag? That's what I care about.
So, there he is.
What's up?
Oh, I'm just checking you guys out. I thought you guys got a great show. Love the dialogue. Love to see other hunters out there going after big deer, mature deer. So I'm a big fan. But I'm a meat hunter too, so I'm on both sides of the fence.
Same. I am exactly both sides of it. That's what I said. I say selective. It depends if my belly's hungry or not.
Well, I'm in one of the trophy rooms, and I wanted to go over a couple things. I've got two deer in here from Pennsylvania. This is a deer I shot a couple years ago. It's 13 points, scores 128. Okay, that's my largest scoring deer in PA. He was 4.5 years old. It's very hard, and that's why I asked the question, if there's a 120 and a 150 in front of somebody and you have history of them, which one you're going to shoot. I think sometimes the nerves kicks in. Unless, like you said, that gentleman said he had him on his property. Couldn't agree with him more. Let that guy walk. Most likely he's going to be there the following year. Oh, man, it's really hard to pass a 150 in Pennsylvania, isn't it?
It sure is.
I mean, I've you guys probably hunt way more than I do in my own home state, just because I'm blessed to be able to travel. This is a subject that I'm really loving that you guys are going on this, because I don't know where everybody hunts, but I'm in Berks County, and our deer get bumped around a lot. In the northern part of the state, my dad will watch a mature buck all summer long, into the spring, into all summer. But then you have all the seasons come in, and that deer gets bumped from ridge to ridge to ridge, and it's really difficult to try to hunt and have history with a specific deer in the northern country. So my hat's off to you guys that can go out here, have property, and I guess the word would be grow a big deer, because it's very, very, very hard to do. And my hat's off to you guys for doing that year in and year out.
What I'd like to say is, you said about it's hard for you to grow a 150 in Pennsylvania. It's hard. There's not a 150 behind every tree in most other states either.
Correct.
I think that's a misconception.
Absolutely.
Ohio, for example, their big buck trophy club, which is more popular than Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young to Ohio hunters, is 140 inches.
Yeah.
And so that's what they deem as a trophy, and there's not a lot of bucks being entered in the one that actually score 140.
I agree. And when I started doing television 25 years ago, I started hunting in Kansas, and I've been blessed to go out there every year. I don't draw every year, but usually my daughter, my son, or I, one of us will draw. There used to be a 150 on every farm out there. Hunting has the techniques, the knowledge, everything is there now. It's almost, and I'm not trying to get off the subject, it's almost like fishing. Live scope has revolutionized fishing and changed fishing. We're getting state record after state record with crappie bass. The same thing's happening in the hunting world. You have trail cameras that are sent to your cell phone, so you don't have to go to the woods. You have guys like yourselves that are having podcasts that are giving knowledge away and giving your strategies, your techniques, teaching people about food plots. They're watching TV shows. They're getting smarter, and the deer are having a hard time keeping up. And there's, our problem in Pennsylvania is not the fact that we don't have the deer. We got plenty of deer. It's getting the age to them. And in some areas, genetics can be a thing. In my area, it's the age. If a deer gets to 3.5, he's hitting 120 inches. I promise everybody that spotlighted that field for a week is hunting around there.
Yes.
And they're not going to let him go.
I agree.
That's
I'm
something
in-
I was going to ask.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I want to say something to what Corey said if we get a minute here. So
I'm in
Corey,
northern
I
Dauphin
made-
County, and I know it's the same way.
Well, here's the thing. Even in any state, like in Ohio, I hunt Maryland now, but I was hunting Ohio for like 20 years.
Right.
There would be all these 3.5-year-old bucks, and it got to the point where I said, I'm never saying he's going to be a great buck next year,
Right.
Because a lot of them, even in Ohio, the average hunter's going to kill they might not kill 2.5, but they'll kill a 3.5. The majority of hunters out there won't pass up a 3.5-year-old deer, and I don't care what state you're in. Maybe in Kansas, but I've never been to
3.5-year-old
Kansas.
in Kansas is, well, here's one. He's 174.
Well, yeah, see that's, but he's a freak.
He's 3 years old. Yeah,
He's a freak. That buck there is 1 in a million.
Here's another one. He's 3. These both were aged at the same time because I didn't know. He's 162.
Yeah.
He's 170.
Mhm.
But it's hard for a guy like me to let that deer walk. I mean,
Well,
it's just very difficult. But Kansas, Iowa, that's different than what we have here.
Yes.
This is just a little bit. They're born with 100-inch racks, I think.
Well,
They come out of the mom.
Well, see, here's the thing. They have mineral rich. The soil's different.
Correct.
From
Correct.
from the western counties of Pennsylvania through the Dakotas and the Midwest.
Correct.
The Wisconsin glacier deposited tons of minerals during the last ice age. That's why the western part of Pennsylvania has a 4-point antler restriction, and everybody but the western 10 counties is 3-point. Is because that's the reason.
Correct.
So, Eric, you had something you wanted to say to Corey.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
wanted to say something to what Corey said about the live scope of fishing because I'm a tournament bass angler too.
He loves live scope.
No,
I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I'm kidding. Sorry, Eric.
my opinion is the comparison to me, live scope is the equivalent of a drone with hunting, which isn't legal here because you're getting real time information. Whereas even with a cell camera, I've had this conversation with Jeff many times. You're even if you get an instant picture, chances are you're not going to get there in time to kill the deer anyways.
Correct.
I run cell cameras mostly because I don't have time to check all my spots. I hunt within probably a 50-minute radius of my house in multiple directions. And with the family, with enjoying fishing, work, etc., I want to be able to maximize my time and not be checking cameras all the time and know what I have to hunt.
I think trail cameras, cell cameras, in my opinion, change the game as far as we can put multiple cameras out, multiple states. I mean, as soon as I get off here with you, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to check my cameras that are in 3 or 4 different states, mostly for turkeys right now. But I also want to know, in the wintertime, I watch the deers drop, and then I can call my buddies. I'm like, hey, so-and-so dropped. When I say change it, it's letting you know at home there's a big deer on your farm or walk through your farm or is living on your farm, and it makes your job just that much easier to try to harvest that buck. I'm not saying it's you're not like I don't sit around and wait for the ding and then go, oh, he's under my tree. Some guys do. Most states, you don't know this, but a lot of those states, they give you have to, you're supposed to 24 hours. I don't know anybody that's going to sit there if the game warden says, "Did you see that deer on your trail camera in the last 24 hours?" They're not going to admit to it. But you know, I know that's how it is in Kansas anyway. But I know trail cameras. You just look at bows in general. You know, when I did a story 2 years ago where I took my grandfather's 1970s bow out. He passed away. I took his bow off the wall that was hanging, and I shot my biggest buck with a bow with
That's awesome.
that bow. My point to this is that bow limited me to about 25 yards, and that was pushing it. 20 yards and closer. The bows we have now, I promise you, everybody on the panel probably is comfortable shooting accurately at a target 40 yards and closer, and most likely at a deer at least 30 yards and closer. And I know I commented this a while back on the crossbow thing. I'm comfortable. I have not shot a deer on film in 25 years over 30 yards. I have my limits. I shot competitive archery. I'm not scared to shoot 100 yards. But the equipment, everything we have now is so much better than it was when we were all kids. And probably more so when you guys were kids. And it's
if you look at, there's a store called Bowhunter's Warehouse before Lancaster Archery got big.
I remember that. Remember the old
catalog?
Yes.
I always say, if the bow hunters, I always tell this to Eric because he's a young buck. He knows, he's a very intelligent, knowledgeable hunter, young buck. But I always say a lot of bow hunters today, if they had to choose their archery tackle from that catalog, would not be bow hunting today.
No, I agree with you. Or not be as efficient, at least.
Well, it's you got to shoot. Like I said, I used to shoot 12 months a year.
Yeah.
Now I can pull a compound. I switched to a crossbow now because I had eye surgery and it screwed up my eye.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't look through a peep sight and a pin anymore. But like the last couple of years I was using a compound, I'd pull my bow out 3-4 days before the season. And I'd shoot, and about 2 days before the season, I was as accurate as I was the previous rut.
Yep.
But back 20 years ago, I'm shooting. It took me 3 weeks to sight in my broad to get my broadheads to fly perfect.
Well, we shot aluminum arrows that half of them weren't straight.
Yep.
And
truth.
And the rest, we had a flipper rest, or you might have
had
a TM Hunter if you had a little money. You had a TM Hunter.
Yeah, if you were lucky.
Yeah,
they were $13. TM Hunter was $13.
I still have some down there.
And I'm cheap, and I didn't mind spending $13 on the TM Hunter instead of the little flipper. But the other thing is the design of the bows. They're more forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at brace heights these days, in order to get a little extra speed back then, you had a very short brace height. Now the brace heights are long and they're still fast. Plus, there's never any problem anymore with clearance with the riser these days. Back in the day, we had to put baby powder on the arrow to see how much. Do you remember that, Corey?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so back in the day also, if you knew somebody that could weld, they were making their own overdraws. And they were, we had overdraws all the way back, shooting 24-inch arrows at 75 pounds with 20% let off.
Yeah, but
blowing them up left and right.
Yeah, but Corey, what was the trade-off with those overdraws that we had to give up?
Well, it wasn't very forgiving.
It was every inch that rest was behind the riser, we got less accurate. It was harder, less forgiving.
100%. Yeah, you might have a speed bow, but shooting 30, 40 yards, and that goes back to the bow, the tech. Everything nowadays is easier. My kids, they want to never survive, and I love them to death, and they're great little hunters. But the technology's made it easier, which, in my opinion, is great for the kids nowadays because I want them to be comfortable, ethical, safe, and have fun. But man, some of the things I've blown up so many bows and we had the trial and error, but my point to the whole thing was that the technology has changed. Hunting, fishing, in some ways good, and in some ways, and maybe I'm growing up now. I'm 46, so I'm growing up.
You're getting old.
Yeah.
Babe Ruth, like Ted Williams and Babe Ruth were a lot better than the current baseball players now. Like my dad was always saying Boog Powell and Brooks Robinson was better than Cal Ripken and Eddie Murray. So and I was like, y'all, you're this old. And now I'm the same way.
I'm laughing because I just saw on TV
Dan Marino.
They said is
Dan
Well, these are
Marino.
all
There you go,
full
Eric.
yeah. So
Chris, what did you have? I see you have some.
Yeah. Listen, while we have a bunch on here, I was just given some news. There was a family up in Michigan that they just recently had a storm, and a tree fell on a vehicle, and they lost 3 of their kids.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
They're asking for help, and if anybody can do anything for these guys,
That's
Horrible.
terrible.
just something. I put the link
Chris,
there.
send me that info. We'll get it posted
I
up.
wanted you to know why I put the link there, and I wanted them to know.
Absolutely. Send me that. We'll get it posted up. We'll help them in some way. We always do.
Okay.
That's terrible.
Sorry to interrupt. I just
Nope. Thank you for
No
sharing.
problem. That's far more important than hunting.
So on the subject of mature bucks, guys, I moved in my house in October this year. Now here's the problem I have with waiting on a mature buck. I personally have right now 5 mature buck. 5 mature buck. And when I tell you 5 mature buck, they're over 4.5. 3 are 10 points. 1 is a 14, and 1 is an 8.
hey,
That
Brody,
is-
I found a place for us to hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on out. I have 90 acres. That is absolutely insane to hunt. Okay. Now the issue being, what happens is my property has a road that divides it. Okay. So every Tom, Dick, and Harry sees these buck. And I mean, I literally yesterday alone. Now deer don't have horns yet that I've seen. None of them. I must have had 10 spotlighters in an hour out in front of my house. So these guys all know they are here. They
Where you
all
live?
know.
Where do you live?
I live in Schuylkill County.
Okay, and the
That's
address?
the best you're getting, Jeff.
Oh, okay. No, but no,
Yeah,
I
that's
can
the best
help.
you're getting.
Pine trees. If you can plant pine trees,
Yeah.
that's
so
the best
I
thing.
run into a problem there.
Shoot them now. They ain't gonna be there for those guys. Come on.
Yeah,
Well, I
that's
wanna get
what
a
a
head
lot of
start.
people keep saying. So currently right now I have 3 flocks of turkeys, 96 turkeys altogether. 1 is a flock of 28 gobblers. What do you think happens when the turkeys are in the field?
Oh, yeah, everybody's stopping.
I had the game commission come here and shoot them without even talking to me.
What?
What?
Yeah, they came and netted them. Shot a big cannon over them.
They did the trap. I can attest because I'm pretty close to Ben. So
Let
I
me
know.
tell you how that went over for me. Let's just say they don't like me currently.
Oh, they wouldn't like me either.
But I mean,
Okay.
mature bucks is great. I'm all in, but I'm with Corey. If you get into that area, and even though I'm hunting that mature 4.5, 10 pointer, or 13 or 14, if I got a beautiful 8 that comes along, that's a 3-year-old, I'm shooting them. There's no question in my mind where I stand.
I'm gonna just say this, and one of the things that I'm a big advocate for is promoting shoot what makes you happy.
Exactly.
So 3 years ago, if I'd have been on here, we'd probably be in a little bit different conversation. 3-4 years ago, if it was 120 inches or better, I was letting an arrow fly. It's just that was the mentality at the time that I had. Everybody has a different situation. Me personally, here in Pennsylvania, I have 2 places that I'm able to hunt, and I won't shoot anything unless it's a good buck. Now, when I say a good buck, if my heart starts pounding and my arrows, we've all been there. I'm letting an arrow fly, and I'm not going to apologize to nobody about that.
Amen.
No, you shouldn't.
That, both these places I've hunted for probably 7 or 8 years, and I've never seen a deer or had a photo of a deer on these properties over 125 inches ever. It's just it's just they're not the greatest spots in the world, but they hold some deer, and I have fun being there. So
and that's all that
say,
matters.
correct. If you are lucky enough to have a big property and you can, that is to me that is the ultimate thing. If you got 90 acres and you got a couple mature bucks there hanging around, and you're able to say, okay, I'm going to name that deer, I'm going after the Megatron, and that's the deer I'm going to hunt. And you get him, I think that is the greatest thing ever. If you're the guy that says, and I know we've all had a buddy like this. I have a lot of friends, fans, and just acquaintances that'll come up and say, "Hey, I'm hunting this buck," and it's a 14-inch 6-pointer that's the deer they want to shoot. We as hunters can't judge those guys at all.
No, we
I
can't.
agree
And-
totally.
No, we can't.
Not
and,
at all.
and it's I don't want anybody watching this or seeing this video later saying, "Oh, these guys are all," man, go out there and hunt and have fun. That's what we are all promoting at the end of the day, is having fun. I'm at an age
Absolutely.
now where I've shot up to 200-inch deer. And I this past year before, I shot an 80-inch buck on this farm in Pennsylvania. It's the first deer I killed with a bow in PA, and probably since my daughter started hunting, because they were hunting. And you would have thought I killed a new world record. Like, I wanted to mount it. My wife's like, "Well, you're mounting an 80-inch deer," and I'm like, "Yeah, this deer." He turned right, I turned left. It was a game. He's 2-year-old.
Mhm.
He might have been 3. It's tough, but I'll say he's a 2-year-old because I don't care. But go out and have fun. If you're a meat hunter, man, and you shoot a 5-pointer because you wanted them, fine. I can never tell anybody go shoot does for meat, because I think the more does you got on a property, I think you're better off. It's just me, and I don't know, man. Just I don't want anybody watching this thinking we're all going to yell at you if you shoot a 5-pointer, because I'd be the first guy to shake your hand. I'd be the first guy to pat you on the back. I'll send
Same.
you broadheads.
I would be the first guy to yell at the person that got mad at the person for shooting the 5-pointer.
yeah, exactly.
Because they
going.
if they're happy with using, especially in Pennsylvania, you get 1 buck tag.
Yeah,
If they're happy, thrilled to put that 1 buck tag on that deer, I'm thrilled for them.
yep.
And now, if we were to state like Maryland, where you can shoot 3 bucks and they're just shooting it because they got 3 buck tags and the next one will be bigger, well, then then that's different. But Pennsylvania, you're done. So if you're willing to sacrifice the rest of your season as far as buck hunting goes for that buck, and he's what you're, that's, I congratulate him. That's great.
The flip side too, though, and I don't know you, but listen to you talk. But once you put your hands on a mature buck, it changes you. It really does. It makes you, like, I think it's a step up from, I got that buck. Now you got a mature deer. That deer went through 5 seasons in Pennsylvania against all of us hunters. That's saying something. So, if you're on the fence this season about, I'm going hunting, man, up your standards one more notch. Look for that Brahma bull, how I always like to say that. They're real short and stocky. And, look for that deer.
Yeah.
Don't so much stare at the antlers. Here's a real quick story. We had a deer on one of our farms in Kansas. So back to Kansas, because I spent a lot of time there. That deer might have scored 100 inches. I seen him. I passed him up. He became like the mascot of this farm. Like, we called him Oldie. Here comes Oldie. Here comes Oldie. Here comes Oldie. So I took my son out there this year to get Oldie. Oldie comes in, and the deer's 300 pounds on the hoof. Just a big deer, but he had an injury years ago, and that's how we always knew him. He had a hole. He still has the hole in the side, and he always had a goofy one side, as we all know, with a lot of stuff going on. But that deer wouldn't score 100 inches. I wanted to draw this past year because that was the deer I wanted to go after. I said that deer went through 9 seasons. At this point now, he's going to need CPR if he goes after a doe afterwards. So I need to, like someone said, he can't go to the vet and change things. This is exactly a prime example. And that is the one deer that I promise, if he was next to a 150, I would have taken him.
Yeah, and see, Corey, that's what I was answering that question about, because I had a buck just like that. Now, the last year of his life, I took him off the hit list. I hate to say hit list, but because he kicked my butt and our butt for 8.5 years, he deserved to die of natural causes.
Yeah.
Now, just because I took him off the hit list doesn't mean I didn't see him regardless. So he died of that winter. He died of natural causes at 9, and he lived to be 9.5, going into 10, and now, like I said, I didn't get a chance to pass him up that year. Even though I took him off the hit list, he was like, "You're still not going to see me."
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, that deer there. I mean, you probably put a lot of time and effort, and for that deer to kind of, I don't want to use the word beat you, but he beat you.
No, he made me feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
No, Lila, I find his sheds right that winter, and I felt like a flipping idiot. I was like, "You son of a," you know what I mean? I was like, "This is where you were."
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know, and that's why when you asked that question, I've had bucks, and you notice I've never actually mentioned score. That one time in this conversation, I shoot deer based on age because a 150-inch 3.5-year-old is not as hard to kill as a 120-inch 6.5-year-old.
Or an old doe,
Yep.
for that matter.
Or, well, does aren't that hard to kill because they don't have as large of. They're not as nocturnal and they don't have as large of a territory.
Home ranges, yeah, they stay close.
Yeah, they're born, live their whole life, and die within like a 2 square mile area. And a mature buck will have 4 different bedding areas 2 miles apart from each other. So
Yeah,
they're,
I can kill a mature doe every year. I unfortunately don't kill a mature buck every year.
All right,
there's
just want
those
to tell
I
you,
pass up. Go ahead, I'm
I
sorry.
had 200, Jeff, 200 in my field the other night when Mike left.
How
What,
many
does?
sheds did you find?
No, I'm not
Man.
kidding.
I introduced them to
does?
the branch butter.
Yep.
Find any
I
sheds?
introduced them.
I did not. One thing I noticed was as soon as muzzleloader was out, well, I shouldn't even say muzzleloader. As soon as the rifle went out, the neighbor over here starts dumping ridiculous amounts of corn. Now we can still hunt the top fields because we're far enough away.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it, but I caught him one day going in and out with his 4-wheeler, and he had these ridiculous. I think he had like 12 bags of corn on the back of his 4-wheeler going
Wow.
in. So if there's sheds, I'll almost bet money they're all over there.
Well, they're in that grass field.
Yeah, they're in a grass field beside my house. I can watch them at night in my thermal. If you want to see something crazy, stop by one night. We'll sit here with a thermal. It's absolutely insane.
It has to be. Yeah.
I counted last year the biggest buck on this property. I had him come out every night at 11 o'clock at night. He would walk down the wood line, come in behind my barn, stop, turn, and walk straight back up the mountain every night.
Well,
I watched him for 3 weeks straight.
On Thursday, after we did the live at your house, when I pulled out to come home, I didn't even go a half a mile, and I bet I seen 200 deer in them fields.
It's a neighbor between me. That's that one and the next neighbor. They're all over the place.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Wow.
Like I said, Corey, you want to come out? Come on out. I'm telling you, I got deer. I tell everybody, place to find them is the top of the mountain because everybody else isn't hunting up there.
That's crazy.
They're there.
I got a lot of deer here. I mean, I just watch them all day long.
That's a lot of deer. That's a lot of deer.
Now, will those deer stick around? I know a lot of places where they winter like that and yard up. They'll kind of disperse. Will a lot of those deer stay for you, or do a lot of those deer disperse?
Well, this neighbor dumping all this corn down, I can assure you, they're not going nowhere.
I got you.
They're in and out of here every month dumping. So, and then you usually once the farmer plants my fields here, they don't dump no more because they now have the natural resource to. Mike and I are working on some food plots, so I'm trying to get some stuff in from a few people to get some food plots planted. I want to try to pull the deer off the mountain into my bottom fields,
and that will definitely do it. I mean, anytime you can put some, white clover. I'm not a huge food plot guy, other than I've hunted over them and I've installed them a few times. But I'm definitely not a deer farmer. But I do know I put a couple kill plots in just these 2 areas that I hunt, and it definitely pulls the deer into those areas. So you should have some luck there with those food plots.
Yeah, but 200 deer
changes.
200 deer are going to eat 3 acres of food plots in a week.
Yeah, you might have to fence it off a little bit prior.
Seriously, once they start hitting it, 200 about 4 deer will destroy a 1 acre food plot.
Well, I have probably 60. Mike, what do I have? 60 acres. You think that is all planted with food? Now corn.
I'd say 65.
Yeah, that gets corn and
Well, that's good.
Beans every year.
Yep, that's awesome. But yeah, this is the plan. I didn't know you were planting the ag, but if you're
that's
just planting
why
food plot, Yeah.
Hey,
So
Ben,
that's why every Tom, Dick, and Harry knows they're here, because they come out of the
We're
top
talking
field
about-
into the bottom fields.
talking about deer, and there's a spike buck in my dehydrator.
So
Yeah,
they've been
but I mean, I'm all about mature buck, but I assure you that it's even after the ones I've been after, I'm going to
Well,
say all day that if I get one, I'm going to probably take it. I passed on 5 points last year and little ones. I mean, so straight with you, I had my son with, who doesn't hunt yet, and I have a 5-pointer come up through. I had him at 12 yards, and my boy's like, "Dad, just shoot him, Dad. Shoot him, Dad." And that was a learning lesson for me. I said, "Listen, buddy, if we let him go, he gets bigger. We don't want to shoot that one. We want to let him go." Now, everything inside of me wanted to go, let's take him so he gets to be part of this. But I felt it was more important to be a learning lesson at that point than it was to, give him the experience, because he's already been with for some.
I'm going to tell you a funny story, and I swear we're brothers from another mother. I was hunting Delaware. This is 11 years ago. There was a very respectable buck down there that I would have liked to have put an arrow in, and he was hanging out with a 5-pointer every day. My daughter was 5 years old. I carried her into the stand, hooked her up to the buddy system, hoisted her up. I had 2 stands up there. She was sitting in the camera stand, and that afternoon, here comes this 5-pointer, and we can bait down there. It was right into the corn on private ground. It's right into the corn. And this 5-pointer's under me. Don't even have the bow in my hand. I look up at her, and I could see her, like, perplexed. Like, I thought we were supposed to shoot this. So I turned my head, and I'm like, that's the little guy. The big one's coming. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. She goes, "You going to shoot him?" And I was like, "No." She goes, "Why not?" And I at that time, I couldn't answer her. So I picked up my bow, and we can get 2 tags down there. And I thought, the farmer, it's kind of a red tag thing anyway. But, of course, I wasn't into shooting a 5-pointer. I'll never forget this as long as I live. She kept saying, "Come on, Dad, shoot him." She talked me right into it. And the whole time, the big one's standing out in the field. I'm inside the woodlot. So I ended up shooting that. I shot him. And the best part was at full draw, she leans in and she's like, "Good luck, Daddy." I'll never forget that. As long as I live, I smoked that deer. And then the other deer never, ever came back to that farm ever again after his buddy walked out and fell over dead next to him. But I didn't have the courage. And I have a lot of friends, and this gets me in a lot of arguments with these guys. I personally think kids have to learn a lot of things growing up, and my kid is one of them, Brody. And Brody's killed. Both my kids have been blessed to kill some really nice deer. But for me to tell my kids, I'm letting them grow up the way I did. We all grew up in Pennsylvania. When you shot a buck, it was probably a spike, a 4 or 5, or maybe a 6. And if you got an 8-pointer, boy, you drove around for a week till the thing went rotten on the top of your truck.
I drove it around with my truck if it was a 4-point for a week.
So my kids are still growing up under that. I want them to make the decisions on their own. Now, in Kansas and on farms like you have that property, that might be a little bit different. Ben has that big 90 acres. That's a little bit different. If you can have the opportunity, I didn't have that many opportunities growing up. So when I seen one, you had to pull the trigger. And, so in the last couple of years here in Pennsylvania, Brody's killed a one-horn buck named Elliot. He did kill a big 8-pointer last year 2 years ago with a crossbow, but now he's hunting with a compound, and he killed a spike buck this past year. And you would have thought the kid shot I think kids need to still experience the
Yeah.
I think I was as happy as
Exactly.
he could be.
I agree.
let them progress.
110%. Yep.
Let them progress into the understanding about mature deer, because it takes a lot. I'm 46, and I certainly, and I'm sure none of us will all admit this, none of us are know everything there is about whitetails, and that's the fun part of hunting. You're constantly learning. That's the fun
Always
part about
learning.
this time of the year. We're always learning, and
each area is different.
Yep. And you guys said it earlier. Every place is different. Schuylkill County is a little different than Berks.
Yep.
Northern Berks and Southern Berks are definitely different. Then you get into Bucks, Chester, and Montgomery, and you're getting closer to Philly, where you're getting, those guys are regularly shooting 140, 150 class deer. because they're hunting in city deer is what I call them.
Suburb.
So you just go out and have fun. Let the kids experience hunting. Let them shoot a couple does. Let them shoot a couple small bucks to get that thrill, and then let them progress from there. Make it a game for them. Like, hey, bud, you shot one like that last year. Let's get one a little bit bigger. That's
Amen.
Yep,
that's how I
exactly,
would
exactly. But yeah, I would like to say one thing about this debate. You with your daughter with you, and she said, "Are you going to shoot it?" And then she said, "Good luck." That's the part of this debate we didn't cover, and that's the experience.
Yeah.
Okay. The experience, and I almost one time in Maryland, it was snowing, and I don't get to hunt much in snow, and it was late season, and I was on the ground and I was hunting on the ground. I was younger. I was hunting in Pretty Boy Reservoir, and a really nice buck came in and gave me the perfect 12 or 13 yard shot in the snow as the snow's falling. And I never shot a deer from the ground at the time. I didn't shoot it, but I kicked myself for a long time after that, because he was a nice buck, really nice buck on public land and in the snow in a blizzard. And all my friends are like, "Oh, I'm not going hunting." So I decided to go myself, and it's in January. I never shot a buck in January before. And but a lot of hunters, the experience, regardless of the size of that buck, the experience you have with your daughter is a lot more important on how many inches that buck scored. And I just wanted to bring that up when you're finished with your story.
I agree with that totally.
Hey, Jeff, if that was you with Sydney, would you have shot it?
Oh, with my daughter? Yeah, I would. Listen, when you're with a child, my daughter or a kid, my nephew, right? If I was sitting with my nephew and my nephew was like, "I want you to shoot that deer. Can you shoot it?" I would have shot it for my nephew or for my daughter, because that's the experience, and they're gonna touch that deer. Hopefully, if we find it, and hopefully we're gonna track it. He's gonna touch it. You know what I mean? This first time he's ever gonna touch a deer, most probably. His 5-year-old daughter touched the deer, and to me that experience, that I didn't, you know what I mean? That's a whole different experience. I think when you got, whether it's the child shooting a deer or you're shooting a deer because my child's sitting with me, I would have shot a deer that wouldn't have been what I require as far as age. If my daughter wanted to come and sit beside me.
So I used to have Jeff, I used to have a property out in Pine Grove, Pennsylvania. We called it the Swamp. It was a full swamp, 66 acres. I leased it. There was only 4 guys allowed on it. My daughter turned 8 and wanted to start hunting. So we're talking about kids. I'm going to throw this at you. I could name 4 years in a row that my daughter could have shot 12 to 13 buck, and she could not pull the trigger on her crossbow. However, I wouldn't trade any of them moments in the world, because I didn't take a bow. I sat right with her. I went and bought 10 buddy stands and put them up. I put blinds up. The opportunity for her to, I remember, so a quick story. I remember the very first buck. Now listen to this. This is a story I'll remember the rest of my life. This story fills me with joy. So I had my cousin sitting off this field edge, and I had a blind on the other field edge. And my cousin texted me, "Hey, I'm going to get down." And I said, "Sit tight. We got about 15 minutes till shooting light. Relax." Then he's like, "Any chance you can see that buck side of you?" And I text, "What buck?" So here it was to the back of my blind where we didn't open. So my dad, in the process, this is all within a few minutes, says, "Hey, I'm at the truck." And I say, "Hey, sneak down that dirt road and look in the field with your binoculars. Tell me if you can see a deer." So now my dad texts, "Ben, there's a buck right aside of your blind." Now Haley and I could not see this buck. I mean, we couldn't see it at all. All of a sudden, and I will never forget this buck puts his head in the blind. Now we couldn't see him. He was nowhere, but he just comes around the corner, and he had his whole nose and eyes inside the blind. Guys, listen, when you talk about for the kids,
he put his nose.
My daughter,
his nose in the blind,
up to the eyeballs, and my daughter goes, "Ah!" There goes that deer. That deer never looked back. That was only a 4-pointer, but she could have shot it. But go on. I mean,
here's something too to think about, and we'll talk Pennsylvania. We, at least I, legally couldn't hunt till I was 12.
yep.
So,
Same here.
So a lot of these kids, by the time they're 12, have already shot a handful of buck and they've got the experience. I didn't have that experience, until I was 16, 17. Then I was driving, and then whatever. But one of the things, these kids can go out at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, and start shooting deer and get the experience that it took us guys till we were in our early or late teens, till we were 19, around 20.
Absolutely.
So,
and I don't know about you, Corey. Corey, I don't know about you, but my dad put me in the woods and said, "Here you go."
So my first, and it's my first buck's right there. It's a spike. Well, it's a 3-pointer. I can hang a ring on it. It's still there. That I shot him. I'm 46, so 12. Do the math. A long time ago. Same thing. My dad said, and you got to be with your dad. By then I could take a gun apart, my eyes closed. He put a drive on for me, and like 18 deer came past me. I remember counting them. They were all does. Then a spike. I got on the spike, and I saw bigger antlers. It was a bigger spike. I shot the bigger spike. The other spike ran to my cousin down the trail. He got the other one. Greatest to this day, that deer means more to me than any in the house because it was my first one.
Amen.
And that's these kids have got to understand that once you get that first one, you get that feeling, and then if you can be that kid, and I try to. My son every year, I'm going to shoot a big one this year, Dad. I'm going to shoot a big one. He's 12 now. I'm going to shoot a big one. The first time a spike buck walks in, it's so funny. He falls apart. Here comes the big buck. Oh my God, look at this. I mean, that's I think one of the reasons we have been successful in this industry is I stayed out of the Lee Lukoski, Drury, and I have much respect. They're friends of mine. They do great things. But I don't think Lee Lukoski's ever shot a spike buck. In fact, I know he hasn't. And either probably has the juries even when they first started. I mean, Spooks Fan just posted his first deer the other day, and it was bigger than anything I killed till I was in my 30s. So my point is just go out, have fun. If you want to shoot mature deer, shoot mature deer. If you want to shoot deer for meat, shoot deer for meat. But don't be that guy that judges the other guy.
Amen.
That's one thing that gripes me. And like I said, I got a lot of respect. It's the first time I got to talk to you, some of you guys, and to listen to a fellow Pennsylvanian that can go out and shoot mature deer year in and year out is really impressive. And my hat's off to you because that's awesome.
Well, Corey, I appreciate you coming on and jumping on. That was really neat that you messaged us and said, "Get me on that show." I loved it.
Well, like I said, I didn't want to, jump in and do that, but it was I was listening to it, and like I said, I think you guys do a phenomenal job. Got a great podcast and great bunch of guys, a lot of knowledge, and listening to that one fella just talking about all them big mature deer is really really cool, and it was great.
So there's my first big buck right there. I don't know how Chris just found this picture, but there it is.
Awesome.
Chris, I don't know where you even came up with that. I haven't seen that picture in 20 years.
Yeah. He's amazing. I don't even have mine. I thought I did.
Yeah, that's my first big one. That was a 20-inch spread 8.
I didn't shoot a Pope and Young. I had the TV show for probably, let me think. I shot about my 4th or 5th year into the show, so I didn't shoot my first Pope and Young. The first 4 or 5 years, if it walked by me, I shot it. I used to go to the Sportsman Awards thing, and those guys, they would point and laugh because I was the guy. I was from Pennsylvania, so I didn't understand the score. I didn't care about scent control. I went out. I knew how to beat the neighbor. I knew he was going to go in that way, and the deer were going to come over here. So that's how I hunted. And that's how I still hunt today. And but I do remember shooting my first one in Wisconsin. It was a great experience. I was with the guys from Lancaster Archery, and they took me out to a pretty good farm. And it's the first time anyone ever told me these are the deer you can't shoot. which was new to me. You know, like these are the deer off limits, and of course they were the first two to walk by. And when that deer come in, I remember talking to the camera guy, and I was like, "Hey, can I shoot that one?" He goes, "It's not on the list," and I shot it, and it ended up being in the 160s. And from there on out, it was kind of like, wow, you know, this is cool. But it didn't really change my mentality. I still, like I said, I'm airing a show from Pennsylvania with an 80-inch deer, and I'm teary-eyed because, you know, we as hunters work really hard, and a lot of people don't understand how hard hunters work to go get that deer. And when you can have a target buck and you can hunt him, and if you don't get him year one and have history with him, and you get sheds from him, and you kill him on year 2 or year 3, that is just an awesome story. And there's not too many people in Pennsylvania that can do it legally. There's a lot that I grew up. I was like, man, this guy's really good. My dad used to tell me something's not right with his picture, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, years later they get busted. But the ones that can legally do it and go out and kill mature deer, like the guy on here, dude, my hat's off to him.
So I want to talk about this. I don't know if Jeff's still on or not, but we've had this conversation a lot. Is you know, everybody on here probably agrees, you know, it's wrong to criticize someone for shooting a small deer, you know, whatever. But we also, that never really gets talked about, is the reverse of that, where someone posts, yeah, I had a great hunt, I passed on this, you know, 80, 90-inch deer, and someone's like, oh, you should have shot that, blah, blah, blah. You know, and it's like, you do have that criticism kind of go both ways sometimes, and it shouldn't really go at all. But
no, you'll have keyboard warriors that are sitting in the basement, and then it, you know, that they, and I'll be honest with you, I'm guilty of it. I've done it. Like a guy will post a 170, and I'm like, are you looking for attention? Like, who passes a 170? But after being on some of these farms and being around landowners, I can understand it now. It took me a while to, you know, to kind of understand that. But you're right. We shouldn't judge, just kind of troll on, I guess. The one thing I do say that kind of bugs me that is when a guy will post, he's on a trip, and there's two things that bother me on Facebook specifically. One is not the biggest one, but
Yep.
I got this one. That bothers me. And the other one is, well, come down to the last day. You know, I passed up bigger deer earlier in the week, but I got this one. Those are the guys that kind of, I don't usually say this, but it rubs me the wrong way a little bit. It's like, okay, man, listen, I get it. You wanted to go home with a deer, but the way you come about it, I think sometimes rubs me the wrong way. I don't know how it rubs you guys, but if a guy that's going to post up an 80-inch deer and say it's not the biggest one, but and we see it every year in and year out, and I don't know how to educate people on that. Maybe it's just the way they type it up. But man, if you shot that deer, enjoy that deer, respect that deer, and thank God for you getting that deer.
It's a blessing either way.
100%.
That's right.
The other guy that goes to an outfit and, you know, well, it was the last day, and, you know, I shot this one because, you know, that's what's hurting us in some of the other areas of the country I hunt, is the outfitters come around and they don't have any kind of regs on what you're allowed to shoot, and these guys will leave with a younger deer that had a lot of potential that we were maybe trying to grow, and he wandered over there because there's does over there, and nobody owns deer, but
Right.
you know, he fortunate to walk in front of this guy that paid a lot of money to shoot a big deer, but it's the last day and he shot this 2-year-old. And sometimes that kind of, I guess, bothers me a little bit. Maybe it shouldn't, because like I said, none of us own deer. And I think some people, I mean, how many times have you heard, oh, the neighbor shot my deer?
Oh yeah.
Now,
Hey, sorry guys, my phone died.
Go ahead, Chris.
what are your thoughts on it? The same thing again, trophy versus meat. When it's, how do I want to say this? It's going to piss people off either way. Do you consider a larger buck that was on a fenced-in property, almost like they were grown to be that way, to be the same as one that was gotten in the wild or on public or on? Do you know what I'm saying?
In my opinion, no.
Not at all.
It's livestock to wildlife. That's my opinion.
Hmm.
It's raised as livestock. If it's
It's
fenced
a
in, it's
guarantee.
fenced in.
There's no work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you guys.
Yeah,
Hey,
just-
I want to bring this up now.
But would you do it?
Go ahead.
No, I wouldn't.
I don't know. It depends. If it was going out with a bunch of buddies and it was cheap and something fun to do, maybe. For me, I've done it. I went on a hog hunt already. I didn't want to go, but it was a bunch of buddies and we went. We had a great time. It was me, you, and a bunch. But I don't ever hunt if I do those things. I let my kids do it. I've never personally been on one of those hunts ever.
There's an island near my house on the Susquehanna that does it.
The exotic island.
I have no desire.
Yeah, that one. That's the one I take my kids on.
Yeah, and I just had no desire whatsoever that you pick out your pig or your ram and they release it on the island and you take a boat and then you go hunt for that,
I've been on it never 4 times, and I'll tell you why all 4 times. The first couple was with an organization that had a terminally ill kid, and they were putting him in a controlled environment. So I went and filmed it.
Well, that's different.
Great time.
Then
different. I went there, and the last couple times I went was to test interlock broadheads, and to be honest, it's kind of hard to beat their price for a domestic pig, and I like to eat pork. So there's no sport involved with it, and I don't want anybody judge like, oh no. I went on an island and shot some pigs because I wanted the meat and I wanted to test a broadhead out on a pig, ethically. But to answer your question, it's not a it's a canned hunt. I don't judge anybody. Everybody's got their preferences. They want a 35-inch wide buck that scores 480 inches on their mantle and has $100,000 to pay for it. My hat's off to you, dude. That's fine. But don't tell me how great of a hunter you are either.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. There's no hunt involved. It's not hunting. It's shooting.
Exactly.
But Corey, I've been on that hunt many times. But again, I don't hunt. I take my kids.
Yeah,
you can't beat it. What's the difference if I buy a?
I shot a couple pigs. It's like I said. I went there because I don't know anybody that raises pigs where I can go buy a pig, and it was cheap enough to butcher one. So,
well, what's the difference if you go buy one on a farm and shoot it with a 22 and take it home and eat it, or you go have a little bit of fun with your kids or a bunch of buddies? I mean, in your case, fundraiser, whatever. I mean, I don't. You're gonna buy the pig anyway, right? I mean,
yeah. I tell you, we did an episode there one year. We went and shot 4 of them, and we did a show for the Salvation Army. Went there, shot 4 of them, butchered all the meat, and dropped it off the Salvation Army one year. After testing some broadheads. So I mean, like I said, it's got its place. It's definitely I'd shake a guy's hand that shoots a spike buck in the state game lands, whatever, and be more proud of that than seeing some guy that said, I just left Texas at the Tecumani Ranch. Nothing against Tecumani Ranch because I filmed there, but I mean, every time you turn your head, there's your 150.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree.
Yeah.
That's what I said. It's not hunting; it's shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I want to bring this up because Jeff's phone was dead when we were talking about this. Corey and I discussed a little bit, but Jeff, I brought up what we talk about a lot, how, it's wrong to criticize the person for shooting a spike, but you got the other aspect of it where the person who would shoot a spike is criticizing somebody for passing on an 100-inch buck.
Well, see, that's the thing. I see more flack from meat hunters criticizing the so-called trophy hunter, which, like I said, I hate that word. For guys passing on bucks, it used to be the guys getting, just like the crossbow compound guys putting each other down. It's the same with the guys who are more selective and the guys who are meat hunters. But I see more meat hunters being criticizing guys who pass bucks up more than I see the more selective hunters criticizing meat hunters for shooting a spike. That's what I've seen. It's almost like it's okay to criticize the skinny girl, but if you criticize the fat girl, you get canceled these days. That's the way I look at it.
Boy, that's a metaphor, Jeff.
No, but seriously, but that's what it is.
No,
but it's like. No, but they criticize skinny girls like their songs. Their songs. Their songs criticizing skinny girls. But if somebody wrote a song criticizing fat girl, and I'm not putting anything right, like they'd be canceled.
You're right. You're 100% right. And I'm going to use that in my next seminar because that was really good.
Listen, as hunters, we're all on the same team. At the end of the day, I preach this all the time.
Hey,
we're all on the same team, and I think that. somehow we get caught up where some guy or somebody thinks they're better than the next. And, I always use Ted Nugent's slogan. Growing up as a kid, Ted Nugent I seen all the time. And I always go back to Uncle Ted. Uncle Ted always says, who has the audacity to judge anybody to put their tag on whatever they want?
Yep.
Right? Like, who has the right to say anything? So
you know what else Uncle Ted said? Shoot the spike.
Yeah, he does all the time. Shoot the spike. Yep, he does. And I'll tell you what. Growing up, Uncle Ted was a big, he was a big thing for us. And then he hit the rock and roll, and you were good.
Yeah.
It was always good.
Yep.
You want to come on the podcast?
Who is it?
I'm on a podcast.
Why are you on a podcast?
Oh, here comes Cammie. She was the one that said shoot the 5-point.
What?
She's killed a lot of deer. You're live. There's like 322 million people
So-
watching right now.
I'll tell you.
Yeah. She's
I'll
like,
tell
oh,
you,
great.
Yeah, I'll tell you my story. I had my nephew, and I didn't care what buck he killed, of course, but I had this 2.5-year-old buck that had the most massive antlers I've ever seen on a 2.5-year-old. There was 4.5-year-olds in Ohio that didn't have this kind of mass.
Right.
He was just going to be a spectacular deer, and I'm like, watch us see this buck, and of course I can't say anything, but. And of course, 5 minutes after daylight, here comes this 10-point, 2.5-year-old 10-point, this massive 2.5, and he's just unbelievable. And then of course, I sent him to get aged, and he was 2.5. But I couldn't sit there. I was hoping he'd see the 3.5-year-old 8-point or any other buck, and he would pass up the smaller bucks. And then of course, he saw that one, and that's the one he wanted. So, I was like, 1 minute, I was thrilled, but I was also like, man, I would have loved to see what he turned into. So
Jeff's
I was
like,
in that
why would
situation.
you do that? Why?
No. He's mounted on the wall. He's mounted on the wall at the lodge.
Here's a perfect opportunity, and my daughter's here to ask the question. Like, when you go hunting now, you're 16, you've killed a lot of deer, some big deer. What do you look for? If we're in Pennsylvania and you're in a stand opening day with the gun, what are you looking for? What are you going to shoot?
Whatever. I mean, especially in Pennsylvania, you're not gonna really be picky out here.
There you go. She's not picky. She said she's going to shoot whatever walks in. She's still 16. Now she goes to Kansas.
Kansas is a different story.
But now Jeff is the guy right here in the bottom. He's got a good point though. So he's got property. So he's growing deer. He's learning deer and teaching deer. So if we had property, let's say we had 80 acres, and you have your cameras out, are you going to shoot whatever, or are you going to shoot a deer you got your eye on?
I mean, when you got your eye on, especially if you've been, watching him for a while and staying on top of that specific deer that you've been looking for, you would be a little bit picky, obviously. I know I would, especially it's kind of how it is for us out in Kansas with, the land we lease or the land we're allowed to hunt out there with Jesse. We watched a lot of the same deer all year for a couple of years, and I know Jesse, for one, was looking for the same deer for like 8 years.
Yeah.
He had his mindset on one deer,
and we got it this year.
He did, but he wasn't shooting until he saw it. So yeah, especially if you've been watching a specific deer for a while, that's a little bit different.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, a place like Jeff's got the property. She's right there from the mouth of a 16-year-old. If she's got a piece of property that she can watch deer, and them deer are staying in some kind of a core area, she'd wait, and wait for the one she's after, and then most likely be a mature buck.
But I also would do that on public. I would also do that on public as well.
That's impressive. That is really impressive.
I started passing on bucks, like bucks at 18, and I didn't hunt public land until I was 30. I mean, I didn't hunt private land at all till I was 32. So from the time I was 18 till I was 32, I was holding, 18 to 22, I was shooting 3.5 and older. 23 and above, I was shooting 4.5 years. I moved up to 4.5 years older. But even if I still hunt public land to today, there's bucks I learned about last winter or this year that are still around. Those hunters never kill all the bucks.
No, correct.
I don't care how heavy pressured it is.
Smart
And there'll be a
creatures there are.
now
That
you might have to
analogy-
walk.
Right.
I might have to walk, and Eric's the same way because he hunts large, vast areas of public. Eric might have to walk 50, 30, 40 miles in a winter to locate those shooters the bucks are going to be shooters next fall.
Right.
But he's going to have a handful of shooters that he got names for and he learned. And Mr. Stickers, I know number of Eric has numerous shooters on public, and he's going into some of them his third or fourth year hunting them, and that public land he's hunting is pressured like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
So you can't just do it on public.
Will they leave that public? Do you notice? Are you able to kind of pinpoint like, okay, Mr. Stickers is, I think he's doing this in the morning, coming off of private onto the public, or vice versa? I mean, how do you guys on this public hunting? And I think
it depends on the buck. It depends on the buck's personality.
It depends on the size of the public too.
Yeah, I think it depends. Well, yeah, because he can go 2 miles and still be on the same public. Whereas here in York County, it's 500 acres, Pinto State Park, and half of it's a lake. He's probably going to end up on private. But no, to me, a lot of bucks, they'll turn nocturnal. They just won't move unless you step on them during daylight.
Mm-hmm.
And this ain't rifle season. The days get really short, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So a buck doesn't have to stay bedded early season. It gets late at 6 o'clock or whatever. It gets dark at 8 o'clock. He has to, for a buck to stay bedded in the early bow season, he has to stay bedded for a lot more hours than if it's December, early December, and he can wait to the cover of darkness to start moving.
Right.
Radio collar deer showed that bucks did not leave. I saw a thing in deer hunting where there was a preserve. It's called, I forget what it's called. I think it started with S, but it was a research facility in Michigan.
Sanctuary.
And the sanctuary, yeah. They got pictures. They found a buck dead 300 yards behind the lodge, and they never had pictures of it.
Wow.
Never had pictures of it once. And it was died a mature buck. And the sanctuary is a large fenced in area, correct? And I read so many studies that took place there, and that was years ago. But basically a lot of bucks, they don't leave. You just almost have to step on them to get them to move during daylight. And of course, if you're putting on a drive or whatever, that's how you do it, in rifle season.
That's crazy.
But they don't leave. They're still there. And if you do push them out, they're back 2-3 days later.
Yeah, I agree. If not, they sneak and hide in a spot and then come back around at nighttime.
And you remember how I said that buck made me look like an idiot?
Yeah.
Because I'd find his sheds and I'm like, I'm a freaking idiot. He made me look stupid. Because he was bedded here. I'm walking past him to honey.
Yeah. He probably watched you walk in.
That's the whole point.
That's the truth. Yeah, that's the truth there.
Yeah.
That happens often. I know over the years that's happened often to me, even on private.
Well, I know when I went to northern Pennsylvania, we had Salt State Forest up there and stuff, and I there's many times you turn around for something, you glass up the hill way back, and there's a buck laying up on top of the ridge looking down on you. I mean, it's
yep.
Yeah.
Eric's bucks, his area, and I think a lot of it has to do with the terrain and the particular area you live in. Like Eric lives in a very difficult public lane. The deer aren't any smarter, but the terrain where he's hunting I think it's more difficult to pattern them.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I haven't came up there and helped scout with him yet, but in my opinion, he lives in an area, even though he has plenty of mature bucks, and that's probably why they're getting mature. There's something about that area. They're getting mature, but they're harder. They're harder to pattern. And but that doesn't mean they're not there. They're there. And Eric got names for them. I don't like some of his names are stupid. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. Taylor Swift. Like he named the one Taylor Swift, and I'm like, just because you like Taylor Swift doesn't mean you name a buck that.
Well, at least you didn't name it Justin
That's
Bieber.
my wife and your daughter, you know.
Or
Come
did
on
he?
now.
Yeah, I'm kidding, Eric.
No, the one buck I was hunting, I saw on stand this year. Low 130s, 8.5.5, 6.5 years old. Finally saw him for the first time. I obviously had him on camera for years. The spot I was hunting him at, he would only bed there on a north wind because he would have that coming over his back, look over the ravine. Any other wind, you wouldn't see him 95% of the time on camera. And like
For
Jeff
100
said,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
and
I
like
was going to
Jeff
say for
said,
$100. I was going to say for $100, I'll tell you right where that spot is. Everybody, anybody can message me. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
But I was just talking to Jeff about this topic the other night. Is you know, the public land I'm hunting, there's almost too much bedding. There's a lot of cover, so they have 3 or 4 bedding areas depending on the wind and other factors. So that definitely makes it a challenge.
I know up at our cabin, that's how it is up there. It's you know, all side hills and some thickets, but those deer, there's no funnels, very little funnels, at least to the eye. You know, around here they funnel between houses. They'll funnel roads. Up there's no roads. You can go 4 miles in any direction sometimes, not touch a road. And my father always told me, he's like, the guys that can go out and kill big deer or a deer on those can go anywhere in the country. When I go to Kansas, we're hunting little woodlots. I use this analogy all the time. If you have a pond that you can cast across and there's 3 10-pounders in there, if you make enough casts, you're eventually going to catch that 10-pounder. If there's no 10-pounders in that pond, you're never going to catch one. And some of the areas that I hunt, there's not a 125, but there.
Yep.
And then there's other areas that I hunt that have 4 or 5 of those in it. And if you sit in that stand long enough, one will come by you. And that's why the guys in Western Pennsylvania. So I hunted in Western Pennsylvania this year for the first time, and I was blown away. Totally different than here. Totally different. I mean, just trail cam pictures alone, way bigger deer and more of them.
And that's why guys who hunt areas that have a lot more mature bucks, they can make more mistakes and still get a chance at another one a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. Like us, if I screw up, I'm done. Like if I might get luckily, if I might get a second shot at one, like you know, a week later, a month, whatever. But usually I get that one opportunity, and if I screw it up or he's lucky and whatever, it just didn't work out. That was my chance, you know. But if that's why I think guys that are hunting in some of these states with a lot more mature bucks, they're not as careful. They're not hunting as precisely and worried about their winds, worried about their, you know, the thermals and everything, because we know like we might get that one shot if we get that one shot. Like Eric said, that buck he hunted 3 years, he got one opportunity to see him. And that buck screwed up that one time and it was out of bow range. So you know, a little luck it would have been in bow range, but that buck, you know, he's out of bow range but he saw him. You know, that's, you know. So but if he's in Iowa or Ohio, no problem. The 12 point to come past 2 days from now or tomorrow.
Or he'll come back in an hour. I mean,
well, and see, that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of hunters that Jeff and I talked to on Facebook where, you know, they're proud to be Pennsylvanians, which is great, but they think Pennsylvania's the best state because of how high the deer number kills are, but they've never hunted anywhere else.
They've never hunted anywhere else. It's like if you ate at a pizza shop and you think it's the best pizza, but you never ate pizza outside that at another pizza shop outside your area, you know, how do you know?
Yeah.
So
I was waiting for another fat girl analogy, Jeff. I'm not going to lie. I was waiting for another fat girl analogy.
No,
I was just waiting for that punch.
No, you guys, I was going to use another analogy, but I better not. I better not go there. And you guys would have choked if I'd have used that analogy. So I said, I better not go with that one. I better play it safe. So, but I should have. But no, like
look, if you go to bed with Taylor Swift and you wake up to Rosie O'Donnell, you're not going to know what the difference is.
I'm going to commit suicide. Can I say that on here?
Whatever you need to do, Jeff, as long as you feel better.
That's exactly. I would never say that about anything else, but in that situation, I think I would be justified and God would forgive me.
Oh man, I tell you what, I had a good time tonight, guys. I'm glad you all jumped in and joined on. It always means the world to me to see there's so many more people that love and have the passion I have for being outside. I am out there as much as I can. So it's always great to see so many other numbers. Corey, thank you for jumping on.
I really appreciate it. I said this before. I think you guys, you're real, and a lot of these podcasts, and I watch and listen to a lot of them. They're very unexperienced people and trying to teach you, or you guys are for real. And
Eric,
great bunch of
what
guys.
I say all the time. What I say all the time. There's guys doing podcasts, like for instance, and I don't want to sound cocky or conceited. I'm 55 years old.
There's people who have podcasts that shouldn't.
A 20-year-old today is, and you touched this on, Corey, about the more knowledgeable hunters and more better technology and better equipment. But a 20-year-old hunter today is better than I was at 20, more knowledgeable. A 30-year-old today is more knowledgeable and skilled as a hunter than I was at 30 years old. 40-year-old, same thing. But there's a lot of guys doing podcasts, and I'm like, why are they doing a podcast? They should be listening to podcasts or listening. They should be reading. That's the one thing. That's I agree 100% with that.
I only do it because I'm good looking.
Well, that you gotta use what you got. You gotta use what you got.
You have the face for radio and podcast. Hey, you gonna come see Stingrays?
I actually want to book a trip. I'm waiting for Mike. Mike was supposed to get back to me. Skip was supposed to get back to me. I want to come down. So I'm just waiting for a couple guys to come down. I got other guys. I need other guys. I don't want to come down myself.
Who do you guys go with?
Corey.
What guy?
Corey.
Oh, Corey?
Yeah, okay. Corey runs
my buddy Tony. The guy that I grew up going to his bow shop does the scale chasers. He does it. Yeah, it's a good buddy of mine. Yeah, good buddy of mine. He's where most of the guys, like his bow shop where he grew up, worked a lot. Like a lot of those guys at the bow shop went over to that island, So like half the guys came in there was hunting that island all year long. So
yeah,
but
Tony's a good guy. He's a good guy.
He is great guy. Great guy.
He does more now in Maryland than he has a place right where I'm at. But he's found a honey hole down there and he kind of stays down there and he does very, very, very well. I've sent him a lot of clients through the years. Great guy.
Mm-hmm. Great guy. He's the only person I would trust on my bow. He's the only guy I would trust working on my bow for years, other than myself.
Gotcha.
Only guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
If you guys get the opportunity, you're going to want to book.
That's why I asked. But that's why I asked.
Ben is the Delaware state record holder. Ben's a celebrity.
I don't know about celebrity, but I'll tell you what. I got three stingrays that night, and the first one I shot was worth something. Let me tell you, that was a good one. I enjoyed every one. Every one was like a state record to me. I'm going to point that out.
You would have shot more of them if Joe didn't have that fish off.
Oh, you know what? I probably won't go down with Joe again, but if I go with somebody who uses one of them guns, they're going to the back of the boat. I'm going to the front.
Yeah.
I'd like to take my dad, but he can't even hold it. I'd pay for his trip, but he can't even hold a gun or a bow right now.
You bring him down there. I would put something on the boat that he could just sit up there, and you let me know. I'll take care of you guys. You don't have to worry about it.
All right, I'll get it because I'd love to take my dad. That would be incredible.
Yeah,
he's getting up there in age.
You guys come down, and like I said, it's just hang out with me, and we won't do a charter. We'll just go out and we'll film a podcast right from the water.
Oh, that'd be awesome, Chris. What do you think of that? Chris, I think Chris is the one that gets seasick.
No.
Oh, you're not it. Okay.
No, I'm not gay. No, I told you before we started I told Corey that I wanted to go down.
Ouch, dude.
Wow.
You guys all come down and we'll...
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
But anyway, like I
Wow,
said,
dude.
I told you before we got on. I said before we got on here that I wanted to go down with
Yeah,
Corey.
we'll book it. I'll put you, like I said, we'll just do one off. Just go out and we'll hang out and do a podcast right on the boat and let you guys all.
Oh, there's
so
Mike Nye. He's in. He's watching. He got off, but he just got on now. So
yeah, we'll talk afterwards. But like I said,
Yeah.
I enjoy doing it. We run a little guide service, but I just love I love the outdoors. I love I guess promoting it to new people. I've never claimed to know everything. I feel like I'm pretty decent, but I don't have a podcast, so, and there's a reason, I don't, I like to talk. I can sit here and talk for 3-4 days about certain things, but I don't try to sway people in any way or say, hey, we have the best of, or this is how you have to hunt deer. I think hunting is all about experience, and it takes a little bit of luck and a little bit of common sense. Keep the wind in your face, and just don't overthink it. Sometimes I think as hunters we overthink things. I know me and my buddy do in Kansas all the time. We're like, dude, let's stop overthinking it. Let's maybe think outside the box. And I'll tell you this real quick story, and then I'm gonna hop off. But my daughter mentioned it. We had a buck. Brody shot a big deer a few years back, and the buck that was with him at the time looked bigger. It was an 8-pointer that had just the most beautiful frame you've ever seen. He was a 2-year-old, and he was with another with a 3-year-old. And my son shoots a 3-year-old. He said, "Let's let that 8-pointer grow." 7 years later, he got him this year. He scored officially. I don't know if the 60 days is up yet. Probably not. But he'll go right at 176 as an 8.
Wow.
He has 12
That's
and 13
incredible for
sprout
an 8.
tines.
that was a big buck.
Yeah.
That's incredible for an 8-point.
North American whitetail, all of them want to do a story on this deer. Jesse's one of those guys. He's like, no, we have the kill on film, everything. It's unbelievable. But that deer, we finally put the puzzle. It's amazing when the deer gets shot, everybody comes forward. Oh, I knew about him. I missed him. I knew about him. So we finally put the puzzle together. That deer traveled 6.5 miles in a straight line. He would stay on us through August into September, because Jesse had hunted him in September for muzzleloader, and we think the little bit of pressure we put on him, we think he was watching us go to the stand, a similar situation to your deer, and that deer would book it across and go south, and he lived on this other guy. Well, that other guy would have him on him all through early hunting season when he wasn't there, and then when he'd hunt him, he'd be there for like a week or two, and he would disappear. Well, then he would go to this other guy, and the pressure, the deer would feel a little bit of pressure, and he would bounce. And he did that, and then how we ended up killing him was the one spot we felt he was going to end up, we never went in there. We put a trail camera in there and didn't do anything. And the first night, 3 does showed up. The next day, the weather changed. I said, you better go in there. And son of a gun, that evening, he showed up for the first time since August, and he killed him. It had a little bit of luck. He had the right wind, but we did not hunt that farm at all until he was going to show up on a camera. And he never showed up. The does came in, and he always would follow these. One was blind. And if we were patterning that blind doe, and we looked at old trail cam photos of that doe would come in, and I truly believe a buck knows when certain does come into heat on certain farms, and at least there. And I think he felt like Doreen's going to come into heat, and she showed up on this farm. And as soon as I saw the blind doe, I was like, you better go in there. The weather's going to change. And he walked in I dropped him off at 3:30. At 3:45, he shot him. I wasn't even in my stand yet was taking a kid out, and I didn't get his messages, so I came back, and I'll tell you, it was the greatest feeling in the world to see a mature deer like that. In the last 2 years, we did that with a 9-year-old deer called Splits, and then we called him Brody's 8 because he was always that was the deer with Brody's. But those deer, you can learn a lot when you start talking to the neighbors after he's dead. Everybody spilled the beans,
Like I tell Eric all the time, some other idiot got a name for your buck that, you know what I mean? Just because you're hunting this buck and you think he's your target buck There's 2 or 3 other idiots that got different names for him, got them on camera too.
Yeah, Hightower was the other one. The one neighbor called him Hightower, which we knew they were hunting him. But what we learned was the pressure of that, the pressure we put on in early season. Maybe we shouldn't have went in early season. Maybe we should have waited. I don't know. Now I don't know. But we learned a lot. And my point is the intel that we had from the history of how that deer reacted. For instance, where I killed my 190, the year before I got both the sheds, he was 204.
Wow.
That deer only would show up in the beginning of November. And we had these 7 does, which now are 6. And they're all huge fat does. And we won't touch them because it's the only does that come in there. But as soon as they show up on that little wood lot, you got to hunt that stand. That's when Brody shot his this year. If you can start understanding, the does will somewhat do the same thing, I think, every single year. I don't know how it is on public, but areas that where I hunt, if those does come in about the same time, and I don't know what it is, but those bucks will do the same thing year in and
a
year out.
doe's going to come in within 24 hours of what she did last year.
See, that's what that makes perfect sense.
Every doe's like that. They're going to come in. Doesn't matter what the weather, the moon phase, whatever temperature. She's going to come in. She's going to come into estrus within 24 hours of when she did last year and the year before. That's what you're talking about.
I try to keep enough notes. For me personally, one of the things I do is I'll keep notes on a certain deer, and my computers are here. I have folders full of trail cams, and especially this one spot that I hunt specifically in Kansas. I do not even worry about we don't touch that place until about October 20th, because about the 24th, 5th, 6th, it lights up till about November 11th, and then you might as well just leave it because it's weird. It's really weird.
Now, can I say something about you? You were talking about how it's easier to hunt those patch deer. I call them patch deer. It's hard to hunt those patch deer because of what you're describing. You know how you said you can cast across the lake, and whereas you can hunt a big woods or whatever.
Yeah.
Entering and exiting those patches of woods that you're talking about, because it's like 500 acres of field and 8 acres of creek bottom, right?
Yeah.
What you're hunting is very hard. I call them patch deer because they're not consistent. It's harder to pattern deer in those patches because they can bed in this patch a mile away, in this patch.
Yeah.
And if you go in there and blow them out, there's not a lot of cover for them, so they're a lot more susceptible to pressure. Where you're hunting Kansas, like I said, I call them patch deer, and I hate hunting patch deer.
The thing I learned
fence
about,
rows.
Yeah, there's nothing. It's wide open, and the thing I learned is you're 100% correct. We used to hunt like the one side of the farm, and then we noticed like we never see anything. Then we're like, well, duh. I mean, we're walking across 90 acres of nothing to get to it. So we've learned. I think that hunters need to understand that the entering and exiting your property is probably the most important thing. I think
by far.
You may have the best property in the world, but if you're walking through the bedding to hunt, like I got this one piece property in Indiana, it cracks me up. The bedding area is on the neighbors, and the guy's got his tree stand against my side, but he walks through the bedding area. So it took me 2 years to figure this out. When he hunts it, I never seen any deer, which obvious. Well, last year I figured it out. I hung some cameras where I don't hunt, and every time he hunted, so now I text him like, "Hey, can you let me know when you're gonna hunt?" He's like, "Why?" I was like, "Well, I won't go hunting." Bullshit. I'm gonna be sitting down in that other stand because he's pushing them out of that bedding into another like a holding area. They'll stay there for 2 days before they. But it was freaking me out for years trying to figure this out. If you can hunt public ground and use that same mentality, if you can figure out what everybody else is doing, you can have a leg up on them, I think.
Well, see, I grew up hunting public. I was looking for human side just as much as I was for buck sign when I was scouting, even more so. I was scouting other hunters because I did not, you know what I mean? And even if you did that, you're still going to be screwed up by other hunters. It's public land. They have every right to be there as much as I do. Sure. But I was scouting what the other hunters are doing as much as what, buck sign, because I didn't want them to affect me. But your patch deer, you can't get in and out like you're talking about. how it doesn't matter which way you come in from. You're coming in from a long way away over open territory.
We used to in Ohio. I had when I hunted Ohio, we had this one stand. You had to go in there before light in the morning, and you sat
and leave after dark,
and wait till the last
after
hour.
Dark.
Yes, well, you wouldn't see deer till right before dark. If you were going to kill them, it was a long. I remember sitting there with phone chargers, and I don't know how many boxes of Little Debbie's I devoured in that place, but it was a great spot. But it was a side hill that they bedded on, and they're looking down. And in order for them to come down there, if you walked across there at 3:00, you didn't. Well, it took us years to figure that out, and that goes back to just trial and error and going out there and getting out there.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, well, like I said, invitation's open for all you guys. If you want to come down and hang out, get with Ben, and we'll get a date. And you guys are more than welcome to hang out.
Where do you fish out of?
Delaware, right there in Delaware, Indian River.
Indian River, okay.
Yep. So, and I'll show you a good time. I mean, we work really hard to put you guys on some rays. So
or hunt out of fish or hunt out of whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Bow hunt, I guess.
Yeah. It's
bow
a little
hunt
bit of
fish.
both. It's a little both.
It's a lot of fun. I know that.
Yeah. So, all right. I appreciate you guys. I'm gonna hop off, and if you guys need anything, you know where I'm at.
Thank you, Corey. We appreciate you.
Nice talking to you guys.
Have a great night.
Nice talking to you guys.
All right. So, guys, we're going to end it at that. We are like 2 hours in. We normally end at an hour, but we had Corey on. There's no way we were going to stop with everybody in deep conversation. I felt we had a fantastic conversation tonight, and it was a great topic. So thank you, both of you guys, for joining us. I'll messages, and we'll talk about another day what we're going to do for the next day, because I do have some guests coming on. Once Chris and I figure out when them guests are coming on, I'll get a hold of you guys, and we'll definitely get them on. So we are looking forward to Susquehanna Custom Lures will be a guest on the show, and we are also looking at the creator of Dry Lock Bows. And he used to fight Mike Tyson and those guys. So that'll be a really cool show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night. God bless everyone. And here at Big Sexy Outdoors, we are out of here.